What's up, everybody? Today in April of 2022, we are in a serious seller's market, and we have been for a while, but I feel like now it's almost worse than ever. And stay tuned till the end because I'm gonna tell you how you, as a buyer, can still save some money even in this crazy seller's market without affecting the seller at all. But you have to know what to do. So let's just dive right in. So if you're a buyer in today's market, you might feel like you just have to give them everything, all of your cash, no contingencies, no inspection, pray the house is in good shape. You might even have to throw in your firstborn. But I'm here to tell you, you don't. And you can still be the winning offer. So the first thing I want to talk about is inspections. Because as we know, in this crazy seller's market, sellers don't want to accept any contingencies. But there still is a way to do an inspection without putting it in as a contingency, at least in my market in the Maryland, DC area. You gotta check in your market if this is appropriate. But here in this market, we do what's called pre-inspections. A pre-inspection isn't the whole 3-hour inspection with a 60-page report at the end of it. It's half the time, it's half the money, but you still get the same set of eyes on the house that will tell you if there's any red flags, any big ticket items, how old the systems are, the roof is, all that good stuff that you need to know if you're gonna go into this contract without an inspection contingency. So pre-inspections are done before you actually submit an offer on the house. They're called walk and talk inspections. It's the same inspector that you'd have in a normal market, so the same set of professional eyes. And he or she will walk around the house with you and point out any possible red flags they see, the age of the systems, like I said before. Any questions you may have, they will answer, and it will just make you feel comfortable after the inspection if you want to move forward and buy the house. And if he or she sees something that is a red flag, then you just don't go through with it. Now I know it costs some out-of-pocket money, but it's half the price of a normal inspection. And this is the biggest investment that you're probably making in your life. So it's definitely worth it, in my opinion, to do a pre-inspection. One thing, the seller has to approve you doing a pre-inspection. So every seller is different. I don't want you to think that you can do this on any house, but your agent, the buyer's agent, just has to ask the listing agent, can we do a pre-inspection? 9 out of 10 times they say yes, but there is a chance that they may say no. Assuming they say yes, you do your pre-inspection, you're comfortable with the house, and then you go in with your offer without an inspection contingency. So besides the inspection contingency, the other big contingency is the loan contingency. Now, if somebody comes up with cash, I'm not gonna lie, they're probably gonna win. Cash is king in this market. Show me the money! But most people are getting a loan to buy a house. So how do you go in with a loan without the contingency? Here's how you do it. You have to talk to your lender and make sure you are fully approved. That means the underwriter has seen your information, you're good to go. Basically, the only thing that could happen is if you lost your job, you wouldn't get the loan. Assuming you're confident you're not gonna lose your job, you can actually go in without a loan contingency, but you still have to let the seller and the seller's agent know that you're getting a loan because the appraiser is gonna have to get in the house. So you're not writing a cash offer, or you're not lying to them. You still have a loan, but you don't have that contingency because you've already gone through the full process with your lender and they've said you're good to go. So let's go right into the appraisal part of the loan, because if you are getting a loan, they are gonna do an appraisal. The bank is the one that orders the appraisal and you can't get out of it. But the seller wants to know if the house doesn't appraise, because most likely it's gone over the asking price, can the buyer still fulfill the contract? So the way to do this is, if you are willing and you have the cash, is to put language in the contract about the appraisal saying if it doesn't appraise for X amount, or between the list amount and the amount you escalated to, that you will cover the difference. Once again, you have to be comfortable doing this, but if you put that language in, your offer is going to be much, much stronger than the other offers. Just to be super clear what I'm talking about, let's say, for example, the house is listed at $500,000 and you've escalated up to $550,000. The language would be something like, if the house appraises for less than $550,000 but more than $500,000, the buyer will make up the difference at settlement. This way the seller is assured that if it doesn't appraise for the amount over the asking price, so over the price the seller set, that the buyer is comfortable making up the difference. And by the way, I'm giving you the worst possible scenario. Hopefully the house does appraise, or if it doesn't, it's just slightly under that $550, for example. but the language will cover it all, and that way the seller will feel confident in accepting your offer. So my next strategy is, if you are worried that the house won't appraise for that high amount, keeping with our example, the $550, because the comps just really don't support it, and you want your loan to cover the entire amount, the other way you can still net the sellers more money is by not offering up to that $550, offering what you think it'll appraise at, and making up the difference by paying the seller's portion of the transfer and recordation taxes. Here in Montgomery County, Maryland, we traditionally split the transfer and recordation taxes between the buyer and seller 50-50. If you're a first-time Maryland home buyer, you get another exemption, but I'm not going to go there right now. This amount depends on the purchase price because it's a percentage of that purchase price. It's a good strategy to keep in your pocket if you're worried about the house not appraising, but you still want to come in with that winning offer. So my next strategy on how to be that winning offer is all about the EMD, or the earnest money deposit. Quickly, the EMD is the amount of money you offer in good faith when you're writing the offer to the seller. In a normal market here in Montgomery County and DC, a good EMD is about 3% of the purchase price. In this seller's market, one strategy is to make the EMD as high as possible so the seller gets impressed by seeing that big number on the check or the wire that's in the offer that you're willing to put down in good faith. And the thing is, from contract to close here in Montgomery County, Maryland, and DC is about 30 days if you're getting a loan. So you would have to come up with that money anyway in 30 days when you go to closing, but it does impress the seller when they see that big amount right up front. And if you want to double down on that EMD, you could write in your offer that it's non-refundable. In other words, if you as the buyer do not go to closing and you are in breach of contract, that money will automatically go to the seller. Now you may be thinking, well, doesn't it always go to the seller if I'm in breach of contract? The short answer is no. The EMD is the money that's up for grabs, but both seller and buyer have to agree on it being released to either party. So if you make it non-refundable, the seller is not going to need any type of release. That money will go automatically to them. I only suggest doing this if you are 100,000,000% sure that you are going to go to closing on this house. Otherwise, it's definitely very risky. So let's talk a little bit about price. Here in Maryland and DC, we use escalation clauses. An escalation clause is a 2-page addendum that basically states your cap, the amount of money that you're willing to go above the asking price, up to the number that $1 more you don't want the house, and the factor, the amount you're willing to pay over the next highest offer. So we use them here, and I think it's really fair because you're not just throwing out a random number and hoping that you win it. You're really being very thoughtful about how much you're willing to pay for this house. So keeping with our example from before, listed at $500, if you say to yourself, I will only pay up to $550, if the house sells for $551, I am good with that. That's your walkaway number. So that is your cap. Now the factor, in my opinion, is just as important as the cap, because you may be in competition with other people that have that same cap or close enough. So the factor is that amount that you're willing to offer over another offer. You have to escalate against another offer. Now, what's a good factor? Well, in my opinion, it's gotta be at least $5,000, and depending on the purchase price, it could be up to 10 or more. Because think about it, if you're offering $1,000 or $2,000 over the next offer, and maybe that other one terms are stronger than yours, it's just not going to make a big enough difference to the seller to pick your offer. So make that factor big. If the purchase price is $500,000, I would say it should be at least $5,000, although I like to make it an odd number, so maybe $7,000 or $6,000. $5,000 is a little too common. And if the purchase price is closer to $1 million, then I would go at least $10,000 as your factor, or once again, $12,000 or $11,000. Try not to go in those numbers that everybody else thinks about. So that factor, in my opinion, is just as important, if not more, than your cap. My next strategy is about rent backs or post-settlement occupancy. A lot of times, especially in this market, sellers want to stay in their house for a short time after you already close on it. So they have their money from the sale, and then they can move to their new place. So what we do when I work with my buyers is we offer the seller a free rent back for as long as they want, up to 60 days. The lender won't allow any more than 60 days. And this way, the seller feels like, wow, I get my money and I can stay in my house for as many days as I need to pack up and move and go to my next place. In a normal market, if the seller was gonna rent back their own house, it would usually be at the buyer's PITI, the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. But in this seller's market, we offer it for free. And if you think about it, when you close on a house, let's say you close July 4th, your first mortgage payment is gonna be September 1st. There's always a month that's skipped. So although you are paying for this in your closing costs, it doesn't feel like it because you're not actually writing that check to the bank for your mortgage. It's a really good strategy and it makes the sellers feel really good about that offer. My next strategy, and then I'm gonna get to how you're gonna save some money, is about love letters. Now, these letters that buyers are writing to the sellers have been a topic of controversy lately because people have been having fair housing violations in the letters they're writing. So the way you can write a beautiful love letter to the seller and not be in violation of a fair housing law is to really just write about the house, everything you love about that house. Don't write anything personal about you or your family or their family or kids or anything that could possibly be seen as a fair housing violation, because then most likely the seller will never read it because the listing agent won't let them. But if you write all about that house and you really make it a beautiful letter, there's a good chance that seller will read it and have an emotional connection to you as the buyer and feel really good about you buying their house. So I'm a big fan of love letters, but keep them safe. So just to sum it up before I get into how you can save some money, at this point, if you follow these strategies, you've written a clean offer with no contingencies, but you've already done your inspection and you're fully approved for your loan. You've worked the numbers to put a big EMD up front, knowing it's just a credit for 30 days at the end. And you've worked the numbers as far as the appraisal and what you're gonna offer above the asking price in relation to how much money you could actually give the sellers to net by possibly paying for their portion of the transfer and recordation taxes. You've also written a beautiful letter saying how much you love that house, and you've offered them a free rent back up to 60 days. You feel confident with your cap, your walkaway number, and you know that your factor is strong enough that if your offer is similar to another offer, it's a big enough number against that offer that you're probably gonna win. So now let's talk about how you can actually save some money without it affecting the seller adversely. And I've talked about this in some of my other videos, but it's really important that you advocate for yourself because your agent may not know what to ask. So what I'm talking about is title insurance. If you can get a hold of a copy of the seller's title insurance policy, you can get a reissue rate, which will save you a lot of money depending on how much the house cost when the seller bought it. So if the seller bought the house for anywhere close to what you're buying it for, that's gonna be a big number for the reissue rate. The seller bought the house 30 years ago for $1 and you're buying it for $1 million, don't even bother asking. But if those numbers are at all close, and even if they're not, still ask for it. You will get a reissue rate, which is a lot less expensive than the full rate. This is a great way for you to save some money without adversely affecting the seller, but you have to ask for it. They will not just hand it over. They don't even probably know to hand it over. You have to advocate for yourself, tell your agent, ask the seller, please, for a copy of their title insurance. And if they don't have a copy or they can't be bothered to find one, ask the seller where they settled when they bought the home, and most likely you can still get a copy of their title insurance. It's really a great tool to have in your pocket to try to save some money at the end of the day. Now, I know I went through a lot of stuff today and it can feel very overwhelming as a buyer, especially in today's seller's market. But if you want me to go over anything more, or you have any questions about anything I said today, just call, email, text. I'm happy to talk to you about this process and different strategies you can use to get yourself the winning offer. And if you are thinking about buying or selling in DC or Maryland and you'd like our help, feel free to contact us. We'll set up a Zoom, we'll get you started, and I promise we will make this transaction as seamless as possible. If you got some value out of this video, please consider subscribing, smashing that like button, and telling a friend. I do appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Bye.